Hello there, this is just a quick guide of how to use Ancestry.com, and when you log in it gives you the opportunity of a free trial which lasts 14 days, and I'm sure after 14 days of using the software you should be able to use it. So let's take a quick look at my family tree. First of all, this is what I managed to build. So when you first start this package, you'll get the opportunity to put in a number of people that you might know on your family tree, and having done so, a little leaf will appear, and sometimes it will give us the opportunity to suggest a father and a mother and to see if those are actually the correct people. So having entered our basic information, by clicking on somebody it will bring up a profile, and from that profile you can see the various details. When you are entering somebody new, you can also click on quick edit, and that will bring up the same box where you enter the first name and the last name and any of the details that you know about that person, and definitely the birth date and the birthplace is very helpful. Returning back to the tree, if you click on the tree view, and if you have the home selected, that will automatically go all the way back to the start of the tree, and if you move that tree it should follow us as we move along. So if we are entering a new name, like for this one, Jane E. Cosgrove, if we know her father it will bring up the same info box where we can type in the name. It will even give us the surname, which helps, and you can't guess this, you have to get it right, and if you know the birthdays and the birth dates you can enter them in from there and then click on save. And if it's a person that's already in your tree, you can select this one and type in their name, and it will give us a list of options and dates, and if that is the person that you're looking for, having entered that already on the tree, it will appear. Unfortunately, if it's in someone else's tree it won't appear. So for this one, I don't know my ancestor's father. This is actually, I think, my grandmother, but you can see there is a leaf which has appeared on the tree for that person. So let's click on profile. Jane E. Cosgrove was born in Belfast, Antrim, Northern Ireland. If we notice, the hints has got a green circle around it, that gives us an opportunity not only to check out the details, the marriage records, the births and the deaths, but also, more importantly, the ancestral family member tree that people have already entered into this database from other trees. So we're looking for 1921 Belfast in Antrim. That's 1921 and 1995, so that means that we've more or less got the same person. If we click on review, then it will say that it's found 3 trees with that particular person in there, and it's highlighting the fact that they've managed to get the birth date on most of these sources and I haven't. So it's in 3 trees, and we can even get a photograph in this one. So let's click on that one, and if the other ones are any different, and spouse Alfred Miller, I'm not quite sure, but this one has the spouse Eric A. Waddington, so let's click on that and then review the selected hints. That will then automatically put those hints across, and if it's not the same then you can click on that to make that the same, and you can see Jane E. Cosgrove, and you can see parents. Let's click on that, William Cosgrove, that gives us the father, and Eric Waddington is the one that we've already got. If it's the same then we can ignore that. If it's different then we click on that and add the differences, and I can't see any differences, and you can see Alfred Miller there, spouse, and we will now enter all those details into our tree. That will then hopefully return us back to the hints, and from here we can also review hopefully those records, and if you want to add them to the tree, it will give us a list of those records. And if you click to save to tree, hopefully that will be in there. The last one looks like a birth or a marriage record. Let's add that as well, and click on Alfred Miller. That will add any new information onto that tree. That uses up all the hints that we've managed to get. So if we want to return back to the main page, that reveals this, and we've now revealed our father, William Cosgrove. So if we click on that, that will then give us some basic details. William is, well, I think he might be living somewhere. And we can also check the phone book as well. Sometimes it's got the British phone book listed in there. It's listed him as in Belfast, and yes, it's saying Scotland, Ireland. So let's review the phone book and add that. And William Cosgrove, Belfast, it will now add that information to our tree. And hopefully once that is added, that will also automatically pop up as our birth facts, and it hasn't appeared that it's done that at the moment. And you can also see birth records and things like that. So let's review them, and as long as it's the same kind of dates, 1901, that's the one that we're looking for, we can then add a middle one, H. Cosgrove, middle name, and we can see death is in Manchester. So we can now add that information, return back to the facts. And you can see it's added the Manchester on to our information. If we click on the quick edit, that will then give us the opportunity to enter that in. Belfast. So Belfast, Scotland, Ireland, that's what it came up as, but it's not actually Scotland, it's actually Ireland. So that was his location, and hopefully if we click on the British phone book and click on view, we can actually view that record, and we can zoom in and we can find him. And so William Cosgrove should be on this list somewhere, and OPQRS, and let's see if we can find him. Cosgrove, and William Cosgrove, Belfast. So 69 King Street for William Cosgrove, and there is only one William Cosgrove listed in Belfast. You can see there's a plumber and a gas fitter. So that's now been saved, and if we click on the back arrow, 69 King Street, and we click on the guy's name, well, he's in there, so we know it's Belfast, Northern Ireland in King Street. And we can even add that as a fact that in we can add that as a custom event, and we can guess on the date from the telephone book. I'm just gonna enter, well, residence Belfast is already there, and so 1923. We can enter that in as a separate fact as 1923 is living in King Street, Belfast, or if we wanted to, we can edit this one and type that in just like that, and that will replace, it won't get rid of this box, but it will replace what we had in there, King Street. So we've now found William H. Cosgrove, and we still don't know his mother and father. But if it's come up with a leaf, then it can come up with some hints of ancestry members in other family trees. If we click on review again, it's found one guy, it's found the children, but it hasn't found the mother and the father. So unfortunately, we're not going to get much out of this family tree that we didn't already know already. So we can see William Cosgrove and Jane Cosgrove. It's found them, but unfortunately it's not going to give us any more information than that. So if we return now back to our tree, we can now see hopefully that William Cosgrove is in there, and hopefully if we keep investigating these things, and this program does take a while to find all the sources, but if you find the island sources, then you can add those sources and hopefully you can get the mother and father from there. If the database finds that source in someone else's family tree, it will pop up as a green marker, and that's very helpful because it means you can follow family trees and build them very quickly. So to give you some idea, let's move on to this one. Usually if it's between 19 something and 16 something, it will give us the green markers because those will be common names in other people's family trees. It will also give us some leads, and it will show the green leaf on any leads that has put into our section of the database, that name in particular. So hopefully if you put in a few names, it will automatically find the leads. And so let's click on Harriet Lee from Colne in Lancashire, and she married someone else from Barley in Lancashire. So Harriet Lee's 1837. If we click on potential father, it will come up Abraham Lee and Falridge in Lancashire. And Lancashire, let's check out his family. Harriet Lee, 1839. It's within 2 years of ours, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right one. Let's click on the mother, and you can see that it's Bradford, which is in Yorkshire, and you can see she married this guy, but unfortunately, even though it's got Harriet Lee in there, it's within 2 years, so it could possibly be the same person. But you can see Bradford, it's not quite Colne, so it could be the same person, but you never know. So in that case, you definitely want to go to the Harriet Lee one, and then you click on the profile, and then look up any leads that you've managed to get from other people's family trees, and also the births, the marriages and the deaths. As you can see, we can already link people to our tree from that. And the most important one is the ancestry members. It's found in 3 other trees. Let's click on the review, and here we can now see, by clicking on this one, we can see all those children, Abraham Lee, and you can see birth in Colne, and you can see Abraham Lee and Anne Woodhead is the one that it recommended for us earlier on. If we don't want to select that one, we can select another one, and it's looking like it's found exactly the same one 3 times on 3 different family trees. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a direct connection, it just means that that name has appeared on 3 different family trees, which means it's more likely that that will be the correct person. And so if we are sure by checking the births, the marriages and the deaths, this is actually the right person, and we can click on those and click on review, and then if we click on all the people that are associated with that name, and Anne Woodhead and all the children as well, Ellen, Elijah and John and Samuel and Anne, Susan, Thomas, and these are all from the different family trees. We'll just select a few of those, and when you add them, that will add their names along with all of the parents in your list. So if we go over now to the facts, it should now have listed the mother and the father and some of the children, and it might have even corrected the birth date for us. But if we are absolutely sure that they are the right people, then that will have added them. And if we look back at the tree view, you can see that it's now added a potential father for this one and a potential mother for that one. So it means that if we can get the information correct, it will extend the branch, it will put the leaf there, and that will automatically suggest people on that family line. And you can see on this one is from Colne, so it's the same place, and went to Fowl Ridge, and you can see their family. Anne Clough is the person that is probably going to be recommended. Here is the Lee family, and you can see the from Colne. If you put yes to that straight away, you'll lose that information. So one tip is to press print screen on this screen so that you'll have the names and the dates of all your ancestors automatically, and you can manually enter those into the tree of Abraham Lee and John Lee and put in all of these descendants. If you click on no, that will disappear and you won't be able to get that back. And if you click on maybe, that will go into a holding tray where it will probably suggest the same Lee to you, the same name to you later on. If we click on yes and we don't press print screen to save that information, all that will do is put that one person into our tree. And if we can click on that or click on view profile, that will then put John Lee in, but it won't put in the father and the mother that we know, the spouse that we know, and all the children that we know into that tree. But what we can do is click on hints again, click on the ancestry trees, and you can see Anne Clough is recommended. It's in all three trees, and from here we can select one of those, and from here hopefully that will fill in the information. We can get the children as well, or at least some of the children, and you can see that hopefully that will tie in. Sometimes families' children tend to mingle in with each other who are born in the same kind of area, so you can't always guarantee that you're getting the right people. That's why you should always double check those facts. But now those names and that person is now in that tree, so if we take a look at that, it's now suggesting the descendants of those. Now it's pretty easy if you can find the descendants within this area, the 18s to the 16s. It will suggest things for you and it will bring up some evidence so that you can see that that's the right person. So for this one, we don't know where they lived, so Barrowford in Lancashire, so we can see that Great Longston in Derbyshire. So if we look at the details for this one, we can see it's Great Longston in Derbyshire. It's got Margaret Scalers in there, it's got the same date on there, so, and we can also see Elena Betsney. So if we click on that and click on this one, Elena Betsney, and now it won't automatically pop up with what it's found, but you can refresh this by clicking on the refresh button, or if you click on the same orientation as we are at the moment, the length view, if you click on that, hopefully it will refresh and it will pop up any refreshed potential leads that you have. So with this one, it's found another father, it's in Derbyshire, and we can check out that family, John Sellers, and you can see Sellers there, John Sellers, 1691, it's within 1 year, and it's in Derbyshire, so that's probably going to be the guy. So Helen Johnson is the woman that we need to find, and so click on that first of all, Helen Johnson from Derbyshire. So we're on the right lines here, and you can see that it's pretty quick to update itself, and sometimes you can march through the family lines pretty quickly if you manage to get a solid descendant all the way through, and that just depends on a number of factors, and sometimes you can be very lucky and sometimes very unlucky in the number of suggestions. But sometimes if you leave those overnight and come back the next day, it's actually found some suggestions. And so we found Derbyshire from Longton, and so Derby, Derbyshire. So these suggestions are probably the right ones, and you can see Derby and Derbyshire. Sometimes it's worth taking a guess, but again, if you click on all the details and find all the family tree research, then that should come up with most of the things that you're looking for, at least the births, the marriages and the deaths. So you can review those and add those in, but sometimes it says you need to get the full paid membership to do those, so sometimes you can't. And very early in the family tree you can usually do that, but not necessarily. So you can see in that one, Longton, Great Longton, Derbyshire, Great Longton, Derbyshire. So it seems in this case that we might not have the right guy, Cornelius Great Longton, and well, sometimes it's worth taking a risk, and you can always double check that that family is correct on different family trees, which we will move on to in a second. So that's how you quickly add different names to the tree, and in this case we can, if we wait for that to refresh, it will eventually find some new leads for us in that particular family tree, and we can follow those all the way back. And it's not particularly easy unless you find someone with the same name in a different family tree. So if we find this one, Helen Johnson, if we do a search for that name, Helen Johnson, that will find the births, marriages, the deaths for that Helen Johnson. And sometimes you can wave your mouse pointer over those and get a free click on those, and that will update those. It depends how far back they are in the years, and so it will come up with a grey box if we could click on any of these and get the information for free. But we can also see John Sellers here, 1665, it's the same date from Derbyshire. And if you browse more like this, Helen Johnson, you'll find all of the Helen Johnsons. Derbyshire here, you can see John Sellers. So if we click on the Helen Johnson in this particular tree, then that says, well, unknown mother and father. But that will corroborate what we've just discovered in the other trees. So John Sellers is here, spouse John Sellers is in another tree, but it has got the mother and the father. That's in 21 trees, so that's more likely to be correct. And if we put this in, Jane Hallowell Sellers, that says that's from Derbyshire. It's got the right date, and it's got John Sellers in there, and it's 18. And this one is 16, so obviously it's not the right date, so you have to be very careful. 16 from Derbyshire, and Elizabeth from Tree, but that one's private. And you can see 18, 17, 18. Sometimes you can just find a member of a tree just by looking through all these documents and all these related names from other trees and other sellers. But unfortunately, it's looking like that tree, Helen Johnson, has run out on that one. It's in 17 trees, so if we click on view all, that's the one where Mr. John Sellers appears for all of them. So X Johnson, that's a wild guess. And you can see we don't know from these records any trees with the mother and the father listed in there. We can click on them and find their descendants, and that will cross-reference and double check all the ones that we've got on our tree but unfortunately it's had to guess at the father. We don't know who it was, and sometimes it's even giving us some artwork as well going with those. But you can see in this one they've found the marriage record, which we can now view because it's in someone else's tree, but unfortunately we can't read it because we haven't got the upgrade. So sometimes it's worth upgrading, and then that unlocks the full potential of your tree. But you can see this Icewind tree, we can go into tools and click on view on tree, and then if we follow those names all the way back, hopefully that will extend that tree so that we can see in this line how far the seller's name goes back, and we can click on those and double check that our facts are correct from the seller's line. And to return back to our tree, we need to click on that, and then that will return us back to exactly the same place where we left off. Now, on this particular tree, you can see that my line splits off into two. The mother line, known as the maternal line, and if we click on that, we've managed to get Boothman back through 3 or 4 generations, and the maternal line usually stops on some kind of royal family where you'll find some kind of royal crest. And so let's click on the Bradleys. We can follow the Bradleys all the way back, and the Lords, and it will show you with a black arrow if you've managed to fill in that tree with quite a few names. And it will help us at this stage by suggesting people in our tree. Clicking on our main family, this is the paternal side, this is Waddington, and if we go all the way back in the Waddington name, you can see that that extends back through several generations, and the further the generation that you go back, the more that those people are likely to be related to some kind of royalty. In this case, I've gone all the way back to Sweden with my name, but you can see I'm connected to Walter Waddington Sr., and it's pulled up the crests for them. And as we go back, if it's a family name which has some land associated with it, they'll also have a family crest and a coat of arms. And so you can see on the Grimshaw line, we've managed to get some people, and we can follow the Grimshaw line back. The Parkers go back to a landowner Parker family that goes back to France. The Townley family, click on those, it goes through Sir Richard Townley, and that goes back through the Royal de Lacy line, which goes eventually through the de Lacys all the way back to people in de Lacy in France. And you can see that those royal crests are there, and you can see Devant in France and Dubois in France, and you can see the King of Burgundy on that particular tree. And so you'll notice there are no green leaves available for these particular trees, but you can find them in other sources. So what we're going to find at the moment, if we go all the way back here, you know that all of these names will have some kind of royal descent because we're going backwards in time and we're finding rich landowners. So these are the 13s that we're looking at. If we find Sir John Townley, he married Elizabeth Sherborne. Now Sherborne must have some kind of a link to some kind of family which is famous. So we can roll our mouse pointer towards that to find it. You can see no leaves on Isabel Sherborne and no leaves on Richard Sherborne or Matilda Sherborne. But what we can do is click on Isabel, and if we click on search for Isabel Sherborne 1424, that will bring up 1424, a death date or an approximate death date, which in this case is confirmed by all of these records, public member records and private records, most of which we can't view, but we can double check the dates. And we can also see that she's got of royal or at least land descent, because she's got numbers after her name, 14GGMZ, which I'm not quite sure what that means, but if you've got GGs after your name, then that's some kind of royal descent. It will also reveal alternative names. So she was also Bradsley for some reason. It's confirmed the date. This is 14. And also you can see she was Brayley. So that's probably a local village or a local town around where she was born, of Bradsley. That's not necessarily the parents' name, that's probably of the town where she was born. Lady de Sherborne is probably the family name. So if we carry on, she's got early French connections according to what this has found. And finally we find the coat of arms, and it says Isabel here, Elizabeth Sherborne Shireborne. The dates are correct, so what we're going to do is click on that. That will bring up that reference, that coat of arms, and we want to save it to our tree, and it will help us by printing the name where it's already linked at the top. So if we find Isabel Shireborne 1424, that will now link that to the person on the tree. And if we go back and look at that, unfortunately the home is selected, so it's always going to go home, but we've now linked that family crest onto Isabel Shireborne. We can now click on the quick edit for that, and if you remember it said Isabel Elizabeth Shireborne, so we can copy that, Sherborne and Shireborne, and we can actually paste that Elizabeth and Shireborne into our tree, because we know those are facts that will appear as her name. And we'll click on the profile. We've now got our family crest and her full name that we can search for in the records. We know her father's Richard Sherborne, born about 1400. If we enter the name that we've just found in the records, the full thing with her birth date, then we get Isabel Townley Sherborne, which we know from looking at our tree that the Townleys, John Townley and Isabel Sherborne, were actually connected. So that means that we can go ahead and click on this 1424 to 1462. So this name appears in an alternative genealogy program, and so we can check those dates. We can also see where she was born, and in this case we don't know where Isabel was born, so let's click on the quick edit and fill those details in, and it will suggest to us those details as well. And she apparently died Stonyhurst, which is Burnley Parish, but it was actually Whalley Parish back in those days. So if we paste that in, and it says Burnley Parish and it suggests it, but we can change that to Whalley if we really wanted to do that. So we click on save, and that's now updated those correct details now into that person. And if we get those right, sometimes that will appear now in different family trees, and we can connect to those family trees using this package. But what we're actually going to do is to follow the line back using this other package, the other family tree that we've managed to find. And the Sherbornes, you can see, have their own family crest. It's known as Richard de Sherborne of Sherborne. So let's now save that, hopefully, to our family tree, remembering the dates and the name that we saved it to. And by clicking on the quick edit, we can add that as B Sherborne, and that should hopefully help connect this guy. So looking at what we found Elizabeth, daughter of Richard Sherborne of Stonyhurst, and by clicking on this one in this alternative genealogy program, then it should find that one also with some royal crests and also for information as well. So he was born in Stonyhurst and died in Stonyhurst 1403, about 14, and died before 1440. So we can look at that around 1440. We can go back to quick edit, we can put those details in, and sometimes we can paste those directly in, and it was before 1440. If we put BEF dot, it will suggest before, and that will now go into our timeline with the correct details. Now this won't suggest a mother and father, and we can double check that by looking at this. Matilda Hamerton, and according to this timeline, husband of Alice Sherborne, Matilda Maud Sherborne, and you can see that she was the daughter of Maurice Hamerton, Esquire. So from this you can see that Richard was the son of Richard, and if we look at that 1403, hopefully when we click on Richard it will change to another date. And we can't always go all the way backwards with these things, but we can now say it's 1432, so that's actually gone forwards from the other date, 1403. So they could have got the Sherbornes the wrong way around, known as Richard Sherborne. And you can see the father of Robert, the son of Richard, and Agnes Sherborne, which is different. And Agnes, hopefully if we click on her, it's saying 1391. So Agnes is definitely the descendant of Richard, because that's a date before. And if we want to double check that, we can also find some ancestry notes they've put on here, and sometimes these can help us work out which of these Sherbornes is the correct one. If we click on Richard Sherborne, and it's already on Richard, and we know that it's Agnes, so it's not presenting as any Agnes with this one, so it looks like the Richard Sherborne is the same one that we've already found, and it's the son of Richard Bailey of Stonyhurst. We know that it's Stonyhurst in Clitheroe, and Richard Bailey, it looks like a married Margaret Bailey, so husband of Agnes Sherborne, it says here, so that's definitely the same Richard. So this Richard Sherborne is actually the son of Richard Bailey of Stonyhurst, and so we click on that, we click on add father, and so we can be reasonably sure now of Stonyhurst. And it will also hopefully give some dates, 1358. Now that's even sooner than the dates that we found before, so it looks like we've skipped a generation in the family tree, but the fact that they come from Stonyhurst must mean that they are connected to the Sherborne family. And if you read that, it says that they are connected, and Sherborne 1377, so it looks like that we have skipped a member of the family tree, and if we read that we can iron out those connections. So death 1391, let's just put this one in, and from this one it's saying that they were born in Stonyhurst, which is Clitheroe. So it's pretty difficult if you want to insert another generation after you've already inserted this generation, because that means that names and dates won't be connected up anymore. Luckily, if we get Isabel Sherborne wrong and we click on that, hopefully, if we click on her profile, then we can also edit her relationship links. And if Richard Sherborne isn't the father, and Matilda Hamilton isn't the mother, then we can simply remove those from here and enter some new names, and that will be tied in with her children. So it is possible to insert names between other names, and so with this particular one, the Sherbornes are going back to Stonyhurst. So at some point, Richard is in there. Unfortunately, immediate family, son of John Bailey. So we do know that it is John Bailey of Stonyhurst, Clitheroe, and John has lost the name of his forefathers. But you can see a lot of information here about the Baileys and the Sherbornes, and you can see the J.R.R. Tolkien trilogy is mentioned because, of course, Stonyhurst was where J.R.R. Tolkien was teaching. So if you read that, then it will tell you that the Sherbornes are actually linked to Stonyhurst, which is now Stonyhurst College. So we know his father is John Bailey of Stonyhurst. And let's see if it's provided us with any dates. 1334, usually 30 years or so is usually the gap between the father and the sons, and it's suggesting lots of names here. So let's just go for the first one, and that means that we've now got all of those names into our profile, and we've gone back to the 13s, and so it means that hopefully we can get back to the Norman Conquest, and then we'll find usually that those guys are people that were from France or invaders somewhere from some kind of land. So thank you for watching this quick guide, and I'll see you again in another one sometime soon.